Hi, we're Option Conservation, and this is the Shoot Room Sessions.
We are in a neutral space.
Secret space. Hello, Annabelle.
Hello.
Welcome to the Shoot Room Sessions on tour. Can you tell people who you are and what you do?
I am Annabel Thomas, and I am the CEO and founder of Nc'Nean Distillery.
Wow. Product placement.
Voila.
The episode is brought to you by Nc'Nean. There you go. How on earth did you get there? Can you take us back to where your story in Nc'Nean started?
So, because it's whiskey, it's not exactly a short story, but it really comes from two places. So the distillery, which is on the west coast of Scotland, is on my parents' farm. So that was the original inspiration. It was a family idea. Oh, we could have a whiskey distillery in these slightly dilapidated farm buildings. I used to be a strategy consultant in London, so it couldn't be more different really to running a whiskey distillery, but I had some time off from that job and I said to my family, shall I write the business plan? Because we've been talking about this idea for a long time and not doing anything about it. So during my 3 months off, I did some Excel spreadsheet building, but I also toured a few distilleries, and two important things happened when I toured these distilleries. The first is that I started to like whiskey, which didn't seem very significant at the time. So I cannot remember which whiskey it was that I tried, but it would become important. And then the other is that I went round a lot of existing Scotch distilleries, and I felt that none of them were really focused on things like sustainability or even innovation. There was a lot of, we're doing things the way they've always been done. And I felt like that wasn't really the right future for the Scotch industry. But I also felt like if we're going to get the next generation into what is an amazing product, both to actually drink, but also in terms of heritage and culture, and even economically for Scotland, we need to start talking their language. And that's what I wanted to do with Nc'Nean.
You just used a phrase that gives me chills. It's what we've always done. Talk to us about why that's such a dangerous phrase for businesses.
Well, I mean, it's the same as resting on your laurels, isn't it? And I think that is Scotch's biggest risk at the moment, is resting on their laurels. You know, Scotch has always been the premier whiskey region in the world. Scotch whiskey has been one of the premier spirits in the world. And I think when you're in that position, it's very easy to rest on your laurels. But I think the other reason it's so dangerous is because the world is changing fast. And what we understood about the world in the 80s is not what we understand about the world now. And that was why, so it was probably 2012-ish that I was going around these distilleries, and really no one was thinking about sustainability. You walk in and you're using an agricultural product and then applying enormous amounts of energy to convert it into whiskey. And no one is thinking about either of those two elements. And you're standing next to these stills giving off all this heat. It's like, is this all fossil fuels? No one mentioned it.
We see it every time we interact with a different environment issue, whether it's burning of the hillside for moorland management and destroying peat, whether it's forcing the use of fertilisers on land to be farmed that should never have been in the first place.
Yeah.
It's what we've always done.
Yeah.
And it gives me chills in businesses when you hear that, because it means you're just repeating the process. You're just doing what was done before, irrespective of whether it was good, bad or indifferent. Yeah. See it play out a lot with people talking about grouse moors. And you'll ask, how are you managing the land? Are we doing this, this and this? Okay. How come? Oh, it's what we've always done. Brilliant. How's that going? Oh, really badly, actually. Grouse numbers are down every year. Right. What are we planning to do this year? Well, same as we've always done.
It's bonkers, isn't it?
It is absolutely bonkers. But you hear it so often, you think, why am I the only person noticing this?
Yes. Well, and I think in particular in places or industries where there is not a big inflow of people coming in and out.
There's not a diversity of thought, right?
Yeah, exactly.
There is, and it's such a difficult balance, because how do you weigh what is a very traditional product with a beautiful majesty and a history to it and its own terroir, with innovation? How do you balance those two things?
And in particular, that is a problem if you're an existing brand with enormous amounts of stock, right? There's a big literal risk weighing your balance sheet down. And I think that's the benefit we have, which is that we started with a blank sheet of paper. And we can say, we're going to do things the way we want to be done. There's no, well, we used to do it like that and that was successful, weighing us down. And I think that is a massive advantage to starting a new distillery. There's lots of disadvantages as well. So
What were the first components that you said you had the spreadsheet?
Yeah.
What were the first building blocks of where the business started to become a real living thing? What were the bits you were sure of first? Do you remember?
Well, it was really that mission that, I mean, the location, obviously, but after the location, this mission of doing things differently, doing things sustainably, doing things for the next generation, has always been completely central to our mission. And using renewable energy was part of that. But some of the other sustainability things we've had to bring in as we go because it didn't exist and we didn't know how to do it at the time. And that is an ongoing evolution. You know, we're still not perfect, and every year we're trying to improve.
So bring that to life for us a bit. So give us some examples of how you really have embedded sustainability into the business.
So I'll talk about what we call the 3-100%. They're the easy bits. So the first is renewable energy. That was given from the beginning, and we use biomass. So on the estate that we're on, we have a commercial forest right next door. Most of that timber goes for furniture and other things, and we take a small amount of the otherwise not very valuable roundwood and put it into a biomass boiler. And that biomass boiler also heats the offices and the toilets and everything else on site. And so our distillers are also wood chippers. When they've settled the stills and they're kind of just, the stills are winding down for the weekend, they'll go and chip a bunch of wood. And that is also all within our control. So we understand that full forest management life cycle. The second is 100% organic barley. So this is one that I wasn't completely sure about to begin with because no one else was doing it. And before we actually had a distillery, I couldn't have a serious conversation with anyone about sourcing organic barley, but we managed to do it. So all of our whiskey has always been made with, and will always be made with, 100% organic Scottish barley.
And how easy is that to source and find? And
not as hard as I thought it would be, actually. Okay. I mean, most Scotch is not made with Scottish barley, which is a little bit crazy, but it's true. We are the only 100% organic distillery in Scotland, but you know, there's actually a lot of organic barley grown in Scotland, and a lot of it comes to England to make beer. Organic beer with.
I did not know that.
So I was one of the reasons I wasn't completely sure about it to begin with, because I was unsure of the kind of surety of the supply chain and whether we'd actually be able to source this organic barley. But it's fine. There's actually enough organic barley grown in Scotland for that to be a very secure thing. We were also told by Jim Swan, who was our master distiller, that using organic barley, in his words, I quote, was an expensive waste of time. And he was right about the expensive, because it is a lot more expensive to buy. But actually, in terms of working with it in the distillery, we have found it's great.
Did he ever voice what his concern was in terms of it in the process?
Didn't get into the detail, but I think it was probably poorly grown, different grain sizes. Then you can't mill it, and then that causes poor mashing outcomes, which causes poor yield, I suspect.
Or maybe tradition.
But I think he'd had a specific issue on yield. And the yield is lower, but it's not catastrophically lower. And then the third 100% is the glass bottle. So packaging is obviously a huge element of any consumer product. And as we were coming up to Whisky launch in 2020, we really wanted to find 100% recycled glass. But it was also important to me that it was clear, because I think if you're launching a new product, especially in whisky, consumers want to be able to see the colour. And we could not find something in 2019. We found every glass manufacturer we could think of. No one could supply it until the end of 2019, when a very future-looking glass company had created 100% recycled glass.
And how did you find them?
We happened to go to a trade show in Berlin, and they were launching there.
Wow.
And I was there with Amy, who's my head of sustainability, who was just helping me out at the show. And she'd been the one trying to find this bottle and had rung around all the glass suppliers. And I was like, Amy, who are these guys? And it turned out that was their launch day. So
amazing.
But so you know, that's like when I started Nc'Nean, I did not have the packaging answer, partly because it didn't exist, and so that's something that we were lucky to find at the right time.
I read an amazing book recently called Thinking in Bets.
Okay.
You ever heard of it?
No.
It's by a lady called Annie Dukes, who doctoral psychologist, dropped out of graduate school in the US to become a professional poker player, like 20 years ago, when all poker players were old, white, middle-aged men smoking in beer halls and stuff. And suddenly she walks in with this doctorate-level understanding of psychology, wipes the floor with them. And she talks about how much every single decision we make is a bet, and it is a form of skill and luck, and we underestimate the amount of luck in every decision, whether it goes right or wrong.
Yep.
How lucky was that meeting in Germany that was such a key part of what has become one of your three pillars of the business?
I know. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. I really like that thinking. I'm going to read that book.
Yeah, it's super cool. Another thing, in terms of being innovative and doing things differently, so that pushes every button for me in terms of how a business should be run.
Yeah.
But it's also the exact thing you shouldn't say if you want to attract investment, because different means higher risk, new means more expensive. So all those things that will excite your workforce and people that want to get involved. How did those values play out when you sought to try and raise for the business?
It's always a hard thing to say, isn't it? Because I'm not in the minds of the people who said no, of which there were many. So why did they say no? Did they say no because whiskey from an economic point of view is a very long-term play? Did they say no because we were talking about innovation? Did they say no because they were really traditional and didn't value sustainability? You never really know. But we definitely kind of put ourselves outside of the traditional whiskey investor community when we were trying to raise funds, because we were saying we're trying to do things differently and we don't believe that the way it's done at the moment is the right way to do it. So
what I love when you are unabashedly authentic and true to your mission, it's a really good way of selecting the right investor.
Yeah, well, quite.
Because not all investment is helpful.
No.
Because it can drive perverse behaviours. Similarly true to recruitment. So when we advertise jobs, we have very playful job titles.
Yeah.
So we have a head of storytelling, we have a terrain detective who's our drone surveyor. So that makes someone at the point of contact go, oh, that's a frivolous and silly job title, not for me. Fantastic, you've saved us rejecting you.
Exactly.
And we also really lean into, we expect you to work all the time. We've got this crazy outlandish culture. Everyone's a bit mad who works here and works incredibly hard. If people go, that's not for me, fantastic, you've saved us a job.
Yep.
So,
exactly, I agree. And I think you've just got to be true to your principles in that. And that can be hard when things aren't going well. It's easy to be pulled in different directions, but you've just got to keep that original mission in mind. And I think I'm very proud of the fact that that's where we started and that's still where we are, even though we didn't know how all of that mission of innovation and sustainability was going to manifest itself. It's still totally central.
And you mentioned the importance of the next generation. How closely linked is that to becoming a mum and leading a business as a female founder with a young family?
Not at all linked.
That's interesting.
I mean, honestly, gender didn't even come into it. It's for the first 4 years, i.e. the 2 years we were raising money and the 2 years we were building. It did not occur to me. And it was only when we started putting Nc'Nean out there, because I did not tell anyone what we were doing when we were building or raising and building, because I was terrified we'd never manage it. And I was like, the worst thing to me is going, hey, I'm going to build a whiskey distillery, and then the whiskey distillery never appearing. So we were completely undercover until we built the distillery.
Do you think that made the raise harder or easier?
Neither. I don't think it made a difference.
Interesting.
Honestly, because I think what else would we have had as a shiny website, basically, that said, hey, this is what we're going to do. And I'm really glad we didn't have that website, because at that time we had a totally different brand. We paid not very much for some brand development pre-fundraise, because I really wanted to show to our investors this is not going to look like a traditional whiskey. You are not getting Glenmorangie or Ardbeg here, and don't expect it. So this bottle did not look like a traditional whiskey, but it also was not good enough for battle in the real world. But had I had to develop a website, that would have been the brand on it. And then where would I have been when I wanted to change it?
So I do believe, so bringing from a sports background, I do believe in visualization and in manifesting things.
Yeah.
So saying, we are going to go climb Everest.
Yeah.
Because if you're not prepared to voice it, you're not going to go do it.
Yeah.
But equally, we did exactly the same as you did. We didn't have a website until we bought our 4th estate.
Right.
That was very much of the thinking of, if you're going to go buy a huge amount of land, you don't tell people you're coming.
Yeah.
Because otherwise the price is going to go up straight away, right?
Exactly.
So that's interesting. The next generation piece, I think the answer I've heard more than anything in the shoot room when we say to people, why do you do what you do, or why do you do it in the way you do it? More often than not is because I want my kids to be proud of what I'm doing. So it's interesting about...
Yeah, well, that definitely wasn't... I mean, partly because I have kids when I started, and it... No, it was more like, these are my values. And I'd seen it. I'd really... when I was at Bain as a strategy consultant, I took a year out and went and worked for Innocent Drinks, a smoothie company. And that for me was very mind altering because it was at Bain, I'm working for FTSE 100 companies. It's all about share price. And then there was charities, and I'd never seen this middle ground of purpose-led businesses, which everyone knows what they are now, but I didn't at the time, where you can balance these two sides and try and do good as well as
and
be
Innocent
for
are held
profit.
up as being one of the iconic sort of B Corp-esque
Exactly.
positive brands.
So I went, and I'd actually just finished working for them when I went and did this tour of these Scotch distilleries, and the contrast between what I saw at Innocent and all of the many amazing brands that the Innocent alumni have spun out, and Scotch, I was like, we are two different planets here. This is the dark ages and this is the future. And so, it's really trying to bring some of that philosophy.
Since there was two emotions to that. One was this like disappointment at the state the industry was in, and then the immediate excitement of, this is rife for innovation and opportunity.
Exactly, like white space and need, because also it's like partly a kind of disappointment with where the industry is, but also I love Scotland, I love whiskey, and the culture and economy are all intertwined. And for the future health of Scotland, Scotch needs to be healthy, and for the future health of Scotch, it needs to innovate.
What I think you do beautifully is you're able to articulate the benefit of the industry innovating, improving, moving forward, while still being respectful of the past and the current industry. It's really difficult for us to do that because the environment sector is so similar to what you're describing, because it is very historic, but also amateurish as well, because no one assumes, I should check, I don't assume there are many volunteer whiskey distillers. Like people of a weekend, let's go distill a whiskey and start a distillery. Whereas the assumption is the environment sector should be a hobbyist or the amateurist and things like that. But if you want to go from there to the billions we need to bring into the sector to actually save at least a bit of the planet, you have to professionalize that and have institutional level investment opportunities. So we've been quite vocal about that, but it's very difficult to remain respectful and appreciative of all the amazing work that Wildlife Trust and Rivers Trust have done in the same way as the historic distillers have, but also paint a picture of a brighter future.
Yes, although it probably is a bit different for us because I directly benefit from it. If I walk into a shop and say, here's a Scotch whiskey, I immediately have a more open door than if I went in and said, here's a French whiskey.
That's true.
I do see the genuine...
Actually, do you know what we do as well, though? Because the sort of infrastructure and regulation that surrounds the environment in Europe, in the UK, is still really well regarded. So we had Charles Courtney, who's the Earl of Devon, on the podcast. Amazing guy. He's also a practicing lawyer in the UK and the US. Amazing. Super smart guy. And he talks about how he thinks the UK's approach to the environment and natural capital should be our next great intellectual capital export. And that the US and...
Oh my God, I love that.
Yeah, is so ready for it. So that's really exciting.
That is really exciting.
Yeah. He should come and visit you guys.
Yeah,
have a great
exactly.
Let's talk about place a little bit more. So can you describe the family farm, the environment?
So it is extremely remote. You get to the end.
I love the way you had the word extremely.
Extremely.
Yeah.
So the nearest big train station or airport is Glasgow. You drive for 2 hours through Glencoe, up Loch Lomond, and the other way around. Get on a ferry, beautiful on the other side. Then you turn onto a single track road. You've still got an hour to go at this point. So you keep going on the single track roads. You try not to take the only one wrong turn you could take, which is merely a loop via some wild goats.
Do people regularly take the wrong turn?
Yes, because it's actually technically marginally shorter on mileage. So if you've got Google set to minimal miles rather than optimal time, it takes you down there. And then you get to the end of the road and you turn onto a track, and then after a mile you are there. And you pass the nearest supermarket an hour and a half ago. It's very beautiful. It's on a peninsula called Morven. It's halfway up the west coast of Scotland, and it's a very special place because it is some of the last fragments of the original rainforest that would have covered a lot of the west coast of Scotland. The wildlife is amazing. We've just reintroduced red squirrels, which is also very exciting, and they've had babies.
They're super cute, right?
Yup. And we have traditional kind of hill farming, sheep and cows, and moorland. Part of the original objective of the distillery, and this definitely came. So it was originally my dad's idea to put a distillery there. And
Was he always a big whiskey fan?
No, it wasn't really for whiskey. The reason he wanted to do it was for jobs, because as with much of the West Coast, the jobs were focused basically on tourism, which is unskilled and seasonal, and it's a vicious circle for the community, right? People don't want to do those jobs, so the bright young ones move away, they have families away, the school closes, etc. And so trying to reinvigorate the community and bring like long-term skilled, sustainable, attractive jobs was a very big part of his idea. And it's really interesting because it has happened, and I've become, through the process, incredibly enthusiastic about it, although it's not what interested me to begin with. I was much more on the environmental side of things. But, you know, that's now all come together in something like B Corp certification, where those two things, and they do have to fit together, right? Both of them have to work. So that element of the place bit was very important, because otherwise it's a highly impractical place to build a distillery.
I bet. So when you think about differentiation, you mentioned before about the benefits of being associated as a Scottish whisky brand. How do you differentiate yourself?
Because I'm not in whiskey, or wasn't in whiskey, I now am in whiskey. I think I've had the benefit of coming in with a clean slate and just being like, how do I think this should be done?
I love the texture of these, by the way.
It's cool, isn't it?
So...
Also luck, by the way. Like, this is just the only way they could print this hand-drawn pattern on the bottle
and
digitally.
we're back to luck again.
Exactly.
I'm going to send you a copy of that book.
So I always start from what is our mission, and then we do things according to that mission. So our bottle looks extremely different to most Scotch whisky bottles, but that's because that is our mission.
Yeah.
We try to talk about things differently, so we're not wedded to the kind of 1980s whiskey speak about how you should drink it, when you should drink it, who should drink it, whether they should be in a leather armchair, etc.
Is that the stereotype? Is that the...
Yes.
Yeah.
And it is deeply embedded, deeply embedded. I get people asking me, but do you actually like whiskey? And the premise of that question is, it is more likely that I have spent 12 years of my career building a company that makes something I don't like than it is a woman likes whiskey.
That's mad, isn't it?
It's mad.
Yeah.
Totally mad. And then I say, would you ask a man that question? And they're like, whoa.
Elle off camera is gesticulating like massively, like, what? Yeah, it's completely true. But as we currently stand, the only female-founded distillery?
No, there is one other female-founded whisky distillery in Scotland, but they are much earlier stage than us, like sort of first year of distilling type territory. Okay. So, and by the way, there have been lots of women in Scotch's history, loads, including ones that ran distilleries a long time ago, when it would have been much less common for women to be in business, full stop. So there is like history there, but just not in living memory. And it was kind of erased by the 1980s, 1990s stereotypes of men in armchairs drinking it neat, hopefully with some tartan somewhere. And that is just very deeply embedded.
So we're on to bottle as being different.
So yes, how do we differentiate ourselves? Sorry. So bottle, different. We try to talk about things in a different way. We try to have different people in photographs. We also make whiskey in a different way. We want it to taste different. We play around with bits of whiskey making that most people don't play around with. And we talk about sustainability.
So bring that to life a little bit in terms of
the whiskey bit.
Yeah.
So a few important things. So I wanted something that was elegant and fruity. And the reason for that is I wanted something that was accessible to a new generation of whiskey drinkers, number one. So no peat. But that's also a sustainability thing, obviously. So both.
Do you want to explain that to people on the way past?
Yep. So peated whiskey, so many people think that peated whiskey comes from peated water, which is used to make whiskey. That is not the case. Peat.
I genuinely thought that as well before we got involved in. Yep.
So peated whiskey is actually created by digging up peat and burning it when you are malting the barley, which is not a good thing to do. But I also wouldn't have wanted peated whiskey from a taste point of view either. So that's good when those two things come together.
It happens more often than people would think, that the right thing for the environment ends up being the right thing for business. I always get asked, should we always sacrifice to do the right thing for the environment. No, not always.
No.
Sometimes you should, because it's like burning the hillside and burning peatland and chemicals everywhere, unabashedly killing things that you shouldn't. No, of course you shouldn't. But occasionally you do have to make compromises.
Occasionally, but you know, that has happened to it. The good side of that has happened to us so many times, like the organic barley. It's more expensive. We did it because it was the right thing to do, but it has made our lives inordinately more complicated from a regulatory point of view, but it contributes to fantastic taste. So when you try our whiskey neat, it's got this incredible viscosity, butteriness to it, which is delicious. It also means that it stands up to dilution. So if you want to drink it with soda water, it works much better than many whiskies, and that comes from the organic barley. Didn't know that was going to happen, but it's like karma. You do the right thing and it often makes sense. Also, our biomass boiler, unbelievably expensive to buy, £500,000, could have bought an oil boiler for 100,000. But then oil prices spiked and we are sitting on a nice pile of pre-bought timber.
When you were talking at the start, I didn't want to interrupt what was a beautiful flow, but I thought in a world where people often talk about energy security now, you're in a beautiful position whereby you're not reliant on others in terms of that.
But what's so interesting is that, and yes, we are, and I think that comes from making the right decision, but part of that decision was that, as I said, we're in a very remote place, and getting fossil fuels in is a business risk. Like if that supply is interrupted, you stop distilling. So if you're in a remote place, you need to design the business to be as self-sufficient as possible, aside from the sustainability.
Well, and another reason why, but we've always done it, wouldn't work because it doesn't account for the changing world, be it politically, economically, or climatically.
Exactly. Yep.
Cool. Let's geek out on branding for a bit. When did what we would thank you, Elle, celebrate. When what we see as your brand now, would we have first recognised that?
So it first was done in 2016 and we put it out there in the world in 2017.
Okay.
But
and
the
many pre-drafts of that? Did you work through many versions?
Yes. So first of all, there was the entirely different brand.
Yeah. The one that won't be spoken about.
You shall not be named.
Yeah.
Which actually weirdly featured a llama, and said llama died the day after I signed the contract with the new branding agency. I've got llama blood on my hands. It was quite an old llama, but anyway.
Why did it feature a llama?
I know. Well, exactly. This is the problem. Can you imagine if I'd spent 12 years explaining why a whiskey brand featured a llama? I'd be like, oh, save me.
What is on the label of Lyle's Golden Syrup?
Oh, a lion, no?
What about the lion?
Don't know.
It's dead, surrounded by flies. It's a rotting lion's corpse. Google that now, the original logo. It was on QI, right? That's the original logo. No one notices, and they've now replaced it with like a lion's head doing this. Yeah, it's a dead lion with flies all over it. You'd have been that with the llama.
And it would have died anyway, clearly. So then I'd be explaining it's actually a llama that's now dead.
There's no way the llama stuff's making the cut, so it's fine. How on earth did you get to the point of having a llama on the bottom?
Because there was a llama on the farm.
What was the llama called?
Larry.
Larry, of course it was. Oh my God. That's ridiculous.
Oh, Larry the llama. Anyway, yeah, so he had actually been on the neighbour's farm. Llamas are very protective of sheep, so they are used in sheep farming.
They are, yeah.
Been on the neighbour's farm. The neighbour had tried to do the right thing and vaccinate this llama against something, at which point the llama had been like, screw you, this is not a friendly environment, I'm out of here. And so had come to our farm and had been guarding our sheep for no pay apart from some sheep food ever since. And the branding agency...
So the llama became Larry the Lodger.
Yeah, Larry the Lodger. The branding agency were like, that's a cool story. So we ended up with a bottle that looked a bit like a tequila bottle, yellow label, llama. And then I had the, which is what we used to pitch to investors, and it at least got them over the, this is not going to look like a normal whiskey thing. And then it got to 2016, I was like, it's not right. It's not right. This is not going to cut it. I can't talk llama.
Was that an iteration? Did you wake up one morning like, oh God, I can't do it?
It was like a month-long process.
Yeah. Because this is elegant and classy, and there's a femininity to it that you don't see with other whiskies. I don't think the llama would have cut it.
No, it absolutely would not have done.
It's just so not you.
It was just, but the process to get to Nc'Nean was such a professional process.
Was that always the name as well?
No, it wasn't actually. It was, so they think about branding, which is the right way to think about it from a storytelling perspective, what kind of archetype or character are you? We got to Nc'Nean was the kind of archetype, which is the Artemis of Gaelic folklore. And then we had to figure out what the name was from there. And it could have gone all sorts of different ways, but we ended up with Nc'Nean. Actually, and fun fact, it used to be spelt differently. So if anyone bought the first batch of our botanical spirit, which is our gin-like product, the apostrophe is between the N and the E. And that was meant to symbolise, you can imagine we were sitting around a nice table thinking about this rather than in reality. We took, Nc'Nean is obviously a much longer word. We took the letters in the middle out, so we put the apostrophe where we'd taken the letters out. And then everyone would ring up the distillery saying, hello, can I talk to Annabelle from Nc'Nean, please? So we had to change it, and now everyone reads it as Nc'Nean. And Mc is the female equivalent, Nook is the female equivalent of Muck. So MacDonald means son of Donald, Nook means daughter of. But because we live in a patriarchal society, no one has ever heard of Nook.
That is lovely.
Good fact, hey? And anyway, so the whole design just flowed from Nc'Nean. She's like a character of the woods, and this is all local flora, basically, painted in moonlight tones.
It's gorgeous. It's so different.
But the bottle turned out just so much better than like the way you can see in the light through it. We never imagined that. It's so cool. It was just luck.
And how do you think about consistency and staying what's great now, but evolving over time and what the future might look like?
Hard. It's really hard.
How do you not get stuck with it? Well, we've always done it this way.
I know, exactly.
Maybe we will. Maybe we'll become the people that we've always done it that way. And
absolutely.
the generation behind the camera will be like, we're not doing it that way.
Absolutely. I think some bits I find not hard on that, like from the spirit side, I love the spirit innovation that we do. And I'm always like, right, what's next? What's next? Those experiments were great, but I want to do new ones. So we're doing really super long fermentation times this year. And that I find very exciting. But from a brand...
What do you hope will change with that longer fermentation time?
Well, different flavours ultimately, but exactly what they are, I don't think we know yet.
Oh, yes.
Probably, we have done some trials and we have some evidence already because we actually already run 2 different fermentation times, but it will probably get heavier and more complex. So one of the things that I want Nc'Nean to be is bright and zesty. And we will probably lose some of that, which is okay because it's not a permanent change. This is just a different iteration of Nc'Nean. But that's kind of the point of doing the experiment as well.
And you've literally just released another one this week?
Yes, Lemon Meadow, which has that lovely, as the name suggests, lovely citrusiness to it. So I definitely want to lose that completely. But we also want a diversity of flavour in the warehouse to play about with in future.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. The word luxury gets dropped about a lot with the drinks industry. What does luxury mean to you?
Not terribly positive things, actually. I associate it with unnecessary excess and spending, really. And actually, it makes me think of fashion. Yeah,
when you were talking before about the whiskey brands who can't really innovate too aggressively because they've got a warehouse full of the past. The fashion brands don't have that problem because they burn it all, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So it's interesting.
I think so. I would rather be. I don't want to be expensive for expensive sake, which I think luxury also can be. We are premium priced, and we kind of can't get away from that because it's actually very expensive to make whiskey the way we make it. I guess the positive spin on luxury is that whiskey is a luxury, as in no one needs whiskey in their life, which is a sort of moral thing I toy with a little bit because we're trying to do this super sustainable whiskey, but actually the most sustainable thing to do would just not be make whiskey at all. However, I have made my peace with that because if people are going to make whiskey, there should be someone doing it sustainably.
In kind of, you've got a weird Eisenhower matrix going on because in an industry that talks a lot about luxury and almost inaccessibility, you talk about sustainability and making the drink more accessible to a wider range of people. Exactly.
Which is obviously, to me anyway, the right thing to do, but it's also very difficult because the industry is established over here in that corner of the matrix and we're trying to take it over here and no one over here is thinking about whiskey.
next book shout out is one called Pattern Breakers.
Okay.
And it talks about inflection points whereby things had to fundamentally change for industries to adapt. One of the key bits in there it talks about is if you are going to be the person who causes things to change in industry to jump a lot, you're going to be called crazy, you're going to get yelled at, you're going to cause a lot of disruption. How has the wider industry greeted your arrival and Nc'Nean's?
Well, it's really interesting because I expected, not just because I was saying I think the industry needs to change, but because I'm not a whiskey person, and most people have worked in the Scotch industry for like generations, not just their whole career. And so I
mean, you tick lots of the boxes that stereotypically they should have been annoyed at you about, right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Living in England as well.
English accent, even worse. I mean, exactly. And so I walked into my first few like industry meetings, like, oh, someone's going to punch.
Did you have a knot in your stomach going in?
Yeah, definitely.
And that's coming from a like corporate consulting background, so you've walked into difficult rooms.
Exactly. But I was like, everyone in this room is just lined up to hate me. But I honestly cannot describe a friendlier industry. It is kind of bonkers friendly. And that is driven from, I think, a few things. Firstly, Scotland's actually quite a small place. Secondly, the industry has been around a long time and lots of people have worked at lots of different companies, so there's lots of collaboration and knowledge between competitors.
That's interesting.
But most importantly, I believe, is that to make a blended whiskey, you trade whiskey between companies. So there are commercial relationships between competitors in Scotch. And I think that drives this really positive dynamic in the industry of collaboration to a point, but there's also like, you do not talk about things past this line. Do not talk about marketing spend, do not talk about sales techniques, not allowed. But if you want to come and borrow some of my cleaning equipment, feel free.
That's so... Why is the divide there, do you think?
Well, because people want to protect their commercial know-how. It's kind of, it's...
That's where they think the uniqueness is.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's not necessarily... Yes, I think that's right. Yes, well, it is where the uniqueness is because everyone's literally making whiskey the same. Like yeast, for example, critical to the fermentation of whiskey. Everyone uses the same yeast. The whole because there's nothing to talk about.
If you drew the map... So how many distillers are there in Scotland?
Like 120 or 30 or something.
So of those 120, if you drew the map of how many traded with others, do they literally all trade with somebody else?
There's a few smaller distillers like us who aren't involved in bulk trading so much. There'll probably be 20, maybe 30 that don't trade. The other 100 trade. I mean, if half of the distilleries are owned by Diageo, one company.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Anyway, so I would say generally the reaction has been positive. Everyone
Which is not
very
what
friendly.
I expect you to say
at
all.
Although you do also wonder what's going on behind the scenes that I don't know about. Don't know.
I think you'd read that.
I think
you'd read it or you'd pick up on it.
Yeah, exactly.
If you've been in plenty of boardrooms, you know when someone's lying.
Exactly.
You use the word premium price point. I feel much more comfortable talking about premium than luxury. I think so. When we're talking about natural capital in a sense of a carbon credit, we're talking about a premium product there that is attracting a market-leading price because it is different and can show how it is offering something more that's differentiated, that's authentic, that's traceable and trackable and ironically organic as well, and has a lovely story behind it and a lot of visual assets and everything. Whereas I think that luxury point does go that one step further because it is disposable and it is not necessary and it is wasteful.
Yeah, exactly. And generally higher price than it needs to be.
Yeah, it's true. How much of your role is explaining things to customers and partners in terms of how important organic is and sustainable is? Are we there now? Has that changed over the years?
Well, my personal role is a mix of that. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. As Nc'Nean as a whole, we spend quite a lot of time explaining it still. But it depends where you are. So you can go to some places, shops, for example, and the customers that walk in are like, why wouldn't all whiskey be organic? And then you go to other places, like I did a whiskey tasting at NEP just before Christmas, and oh my God, it was like straight into got organic, yep, got this, got that, really geeky sustainability questions. So we're definitely, broadly, we're not past it at all. And we do get people saying, oh, I don't want to drink that, it's a bit woke. So there's whole sections of potential consumers that we have excluded by being too woke. But in other places, they're like, yeah, got it.
I wrote a piece a few months ago about how on earth the environment got caught as a woke issue. It's like, I'm sorry, continuing life on earth is
woke.
like, yeah.
I know. Yeah. It's a bit depressing, isn't it?
It is. You touched on your role briefly there.
Yeah.
How would, if you were to package up your time into blocks that you spend in different parts of the business, what does that look like for you?
Um,
I'm a mass calendar geek, so this is
so,
feeding that question.
Quite a lot of my role is being the face of the brand. So, and that takes lots of different forms.
Was that a conscious choice when you were setting up? You knew the brand was going to have to be you as opposed to a name?
No, not. It's sort of evolved, I would say. I mean, like when I left Bain to do it, I thought I was only doing it for 2 years. So that has definitely evolved.
So you thought you were going to set the business up and give it to somebody else and just go to the next thing?
I don't know what I thought. I just didn't really think it through. But that's
Is this the longest you've done any one job?
Yes.
Me too.
So now I've done Whisky for longer than I did Bain, and I still feel more defined by Bain than Whisky, which is a bit weird. I think that's like
intensity of time period.
Yeah, I think it's also the first job thing.
Yeah,
like first love, quite
and
defining.
If you think about it, the 10 years at an earlier point in your life was more of a percentage of your life at that time than it's now.
Exactly. You know, like university becomes quite defining. You're there for 3 years.
Yeah.
So,
do you know who Daniel Priestley is?
No.
He's a marketing guru, wrote a book called Oversubscribed and a series of other ones. And essentially he espouses a model called key person of influence, which is what you are. So when you found a company, you become a person known for that company. So Richard Branson, Virgin, etc. Because people connect to a person better than they do a brand.
So true. Yeah.
And they know the two together. And I think because you are offering something so different to the sector in every which way, the brand without you wouldn't be as successful at all.
Exactly. I think that's right. So I do spend, like next week, I'm going to Germany for 5 days, and that's basically 100% of my time doing that role. The rest of my time is split really between all parts of the business because I'm supporting each different bit. That could be our person running our tours, it could be our distillery manager, it could be my head of marketing, finance, sales, whatever it is. So yeah.
Which bit do you like best?
I actually do quite like the telling the story bit and being like spreading the word, because ultimately that's why I started Nc'Nean, was to try and get more people into whiskey. So to go out there and talk about it it's great. And I also I have this, which is, you know, this has developed over time, but people don't expect me to know much about whiskey, and I love proving them wrong.
Yeah, I get that.
I had someone who shan't be named come to the distillery and say, I'm going to ask you all the hard whiskey questions tomorrow. They were there for overnight and 1 day stay. And I was like, great. And then by the end of that day, they were like, you know quite a lot about whiskey, don't you? I was like, yeah, actually I do.
I mean, we just had a lunch with you and Adam, one of our board members, and it was like the most detailed, geeky whiskey man. We just sat there and listened to like the unbelievable...
And that was nothing. Like, we did not go anywhere near the geekiest bit of whiskey then.
Wow, okay. So that was the degree level. I want to see the PhD version.
Exactly.
That ramps up. Nice. And which are the bits you don't enjoy about being a founder and running a business?
I find the responsibility for so many people quite stressful.
Is it something you're consciously aware of?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah.
How does that manifest?
The stress or the
awareness, and then...
Oh, just I think, you know, when we're making decisions, like, and, you know, it's also part of being a B Corp and trying to take... It's a very hard thing to lead a big team and try and treat people fairly, but also do the right thing for the business and take people's individuals' needs into account. And quite often those are 3 completely conflicting things.
Yeah.
And I find making decisions around that sort of thing much harder than I do around spreadsheets and money.
The quote, Will Guidara, he wrote the book on reasonable hospitality.
You can tell I do not read many business books.
It's okay.
Not heard of that one either.
best restaurant in the world went
Yeah.
from 50th to number 1 by the quality of the service they
Okay,
provide. So that's how they
amazing.
differentiate
Yeah.
themselves. His speech with his team was, my job is to do the best thing for this business.
Yeah.
Most of the time it will be the best thing for you.
Yeah.
It won't always.
be. Yeah.
The time it isn't, I will always do the best thing for the business. That's my job.
Yeah.
Which I thought was the most eloquent way of describing that balance that you've got to play.
Exactly. And I think some people find that much easier than I do. I just don't find that bit very easy.
Did you manage a big team at Bain before?
The thing about Bain is that you never manage a team permanently. So I was managing 6 people, but they're always different. They change every 3 months or so with the projects. And also they're like the easiest people to manage you can
All
imagine.
self-starters.
All self-starters, like the hardest workers imaginable. No one whinges, and if they do, frankly, they get fired. Oh my God, so easy.
Yeah. So my experience previously was managing in the public sector. So quite different. Several hundred people who largely did fuck all and would whinge about doing nothing. So managing a team of 30 incredible people, more of the Bain model, is a joy.
It's a joy. Exactly.
An absolute joy. So I'm acutely aware of time. I think we've probably elapsed as much as we can do in part 1. But I'd love to come and visit and do part 2 up at the distillery.
Yes.
My final question I will ask on closing is, what is the one question I haven't asked you wish I had?
What are we not doing from a sustainability point of view that we wish we were?
Great question.
But it might take a whole episode to answer it, but I'll try and give you the top ones. We are not reusing as many bottles as we would like to be, because we can only bottle Scotch in Scotland in an approved facility. How bonkers is that? So I would ideally love to be sending containers of bulk whiskey to, say, Germany and bottling it there, but we can't do that because of the regs.
What about is there any byproduct from the production process?
Oh, yes, there is. So there is draff, which is the leftover husks of the barley, and there's a liquid left in the stills. The liquid goes on the fields as like a light fertiliser, and the draff is eaten by the cows. So not a bad solution, all literally on the farm. But what I would really like to do is make biochar out of the draff and send it back to the farms and put the pot ale, which is the liquid, into an AD. And it's possible. But
do you produce the quantities that would make it viable on site?
Yeah, so there's lots of issues with it. One of the AD issues is that the AD scale, that's one issue, as in we'd need quite a small unit. But we've also only got single phase, so we've not got anywhere to feed the electricity or anything to do with the energy, because we've already got an energy source. So what do you do with it? And on the biochar side, the right technology at the right scale that can run with the amount of draff we produce, what do we do with the waste heat that comes off that? So there's all sorts of like technical things to work through, but it's the dream.
If we end up having a gap of a year between when we next sit down with you,
seems likely.
Possible with our diaries, yeah. How will the business have changed in the next 12 months?
Oh, good question. Well, I hope we'll have grown a lot. The last year has been quite tough in whisky, so we need some more positive news from that point of view. But other than that, I don't think we will have changed very much, honestly. More of the same.
Perfect. Annabelle, I've adored our time together. Thank you very much.
It's been so much fun. Thanks for having me.